Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our exploration, our discussion with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2021. And that brings me to a title which is already currently in the Criterion Collection, in the physical media catalog, in a particular box set which is known as Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project #1. And so it already exists in this set, but the Criterion Collection has taken the opportunity to give it its own individual release. And so this is what we will focus on today. This title has the spine number of 689, and it is a film from 1981. The filmmaker is Ahmed El Maanouni, and the name of the work is TRANCES, or in English, TRANCES. This is the work from 1981, and it is a documentary from director Ahmed El Maanouni, and this is the work which is called TRANCES, or in English, TRANCES. This is a documentary focusing in on this really popular, famous, phenomenal Moroccan music group, which is known as Nas El Diwan. And this is from the early 1980s, and the film is from 1981. And so the film focuses in on certain aspects of their live performances around this time. And we see performances of a lot of their songs, as well as how the audience members in attendance are reacting to these particular performances. And we also get some insight or illumination about each of the particular members of this group. At this time, the group was made up of the members who are Omar Syed and Larbi Batma and Abdurrahman Pak and Alal Yala. And once again, please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation. These were the musicians that were there as the focus of this particular documentary, Nas El Diwan members at the time. We see their performances, we see their engagement with the instruments and the singing and the lyrics, and we also get the, as I say, the interactions with the crowd. Oftentimes we get the sense or notion of the truly phenomenal, mesmerizing effect that these songs and these performances have on the people in attendance. There are some particular moments where we see one person who is seemingly in a type of almost trance-like state, and there's this powerful, almost hypnotic effect that this music is having, or seems to have, on the crowds that are listening to it. And I think that has to do with the phenomenally famous nature of Nas El Diwan, and also the nature and the content and the very heart and soul of the music that they are making and that they are creating and that they are expressing and singing. And I'll try to get to those points later on in this video. So this is a very rich and very absorbing and amazing documentary on those fronts, and it provides, I think, a great insight or window into this fascinating world of Nas El Diwan. And we see not just the power of their performance and not just the impact of their music and the artistry of their music and the creativity and the real soulful essence of their songs and the music and the lyrics, incidentally, when they are performing their songs. Now, this is, I think, a very important point to make, which is the film does not necessarily present the information or background or details in a type of straightforward historical document type of fashion. In other words, we don't necessarily get any specifics as to, say, details about the founding of the band or the group Nas El Ghiwane. We don't get any specific details as to the historical points of the group leading up to, say, the early 1980s. We don't get a history of their performances, where they performed over the course of time, what the songs specifically were that they played and they created over the course of the group's history, etc. So we don't get this type of straightforward documentary information presentation. Instead, what we get is a type of impression or a capturing of a certain moment in time or certain moments in time as to the group and who they were and how they were during this particular moment in time and their various performances and what they were singing, what they were performing at this particular time. And we also get how the world was, or how the crowds were, how the people were during these particular moments. So it is these glimpses into this particular time period and this particular time and place, or these times and places, and we get from that a sense of what it must have been like. And so it's not necessarily to a purely sort of cinema verite type of documentary. True, there is a major component of the film which could be said to be covering this live performance aspect, which is, of course, very much real and of the moment. And we also know this because we see the crowds and their sort of the spontaneity of the energy and the electricity in the air. And this is undeniable. And we also see the intimate nature of the comments from the members themselves. And so there's a lot that is very much real, but we also understand from the comments made by the director, Ahmed El Maanouni, in one of the supplements that's included in the Criterion release, is that once in a while, occasionally, there will be also these moments or sequences, very brief ones, that we understand later from the director's comments, were staged or set up. And I don't think there's anything, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it serves to further support and enhance the overall effect of the work Trances, because there is a sense of joy, and there's a sense of the expression of the music, and there's a sense of a type of presentation and a type of way in which a certain people in everyday life, how the music seems to have this truly transformative effect on them. And so the way in which this documentary presents that power and effect, I think, is a very bold and innovative one, because it seems to be also, in an interesting and very clever way, seemingly playing with or experimenting with the documentary medium itself. So, while at the same time being a glorious, almost celebratory in nature type of presentation of who Nas El Ghiwane was at this particular point in time in the early 1980s. And so in this way, my friends, this is a really great and exciting, thrilling documentary whose heart and soul is the music, the great music, the lovely melodies and the refrains and the lyrics that accompany them. And as I say, for someone like myself who doesn't understand Arabic or Moroccan Arabic, the Criterion Collection release provides English subtitle translations of the song performances themselves. And so this gives us an indication as to the nature of the lyrics and how powerful and how strongly rooted they are in a sense of the culture and history of Morocco, and in terms of the musical traditions as well as the artistic and poetic and literature traditions as well. And I'll try to get to this a little bit more when we talk about the supplements. And so in general, overall, this is a powerful, dynamic work that I hope you get a chance to see, because it is really exciting, really electrifying, and very energetic indeed. This is the work Trances. This Criterion Collection Blu-ray individual release of this film, Trances, is purported to be based on the 2K digital restoration of the film, and it is associated, of course, with Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project. This film thus has actually already been released by Criterion, and it still exists in this particular separate box set, which is known as Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project #1. And on this occasion, as I indicated earlier, Criterion has taken the opportunity to also release this in its own individual release. Now, the restoration that was relied upon for this earlier box set release, I understand, is the same restoration that is now being relied upon for the Blu-ray. And so we are getting, and this is based on the materials too that are provided, the descriptions and the notes that are provided by Criterion for each of these releases. And also in that vein, we are getting the exact same supplements that we had for this earlier World Cinema Project box set release included in this new Blu-ray release. And so in that sense, and that also includes the essay as well, and I'll get to that in a moment. And so in that sense, we are, I think, I understand it, really getting a individual release that is, in essence, taken from or broken off from this earlier box set. So if you have the box set of World Cinema Project #1, I'm not sure, maybe you might want to get this individual release, or maybe not. It's really up to you. However, again, please note that it does exist in this other form, and based on my own understanding and personal experience with each of these releases, they appear to be pretty much the same. There are, of course, differences. There is the difference of, say, the individual release cover art presentation, and also the insert cover art presentation. But in fact, also, I will get to the essay. The insert has an essay which is also covered in the box set booklet as well. So while there are maybe artistic differences in the cover art presentations themselves, we are getting identical contents. So please keep that in mind in case you are interested. The contents themselves, let's go to those, the supplements. Now, the supplements are, there are only 2 of them. However, each is, I think, incredibly informative and excellent. So now, what are those 2 supplements? The first supplement is a short 2-minute maybe introduction given by Martin Scorsese himself, and this is from 2013. And on this occasion, he talks about first discovering this particular work and first hearing of Nas El Ghiwane and how that really influenced him. And I think he mentions that this particular point of discovery, the point in time of discovery for him, was around the time he was working on sort of post-production of his particular film called The King of Comedy. And it was during this time that he happened to discover Nas El Ghiwane in this particular film. And from there, the influence upon him was wonderful and delightful. And he expresses this excitement that he felt when listening to the music of Nas El Ghiwane. and also how, when it came time to establish the World Cinema Project some years later, and trying to decide what films would be the subject of the restoration efforts of the World Cinema Project, then from Martin Scorsese's viewpoint, that he wanted to have the film Trances as being this among these inaugural steps, if you will, of the movement of the World Cinema Project's efforts and endeavors. And so that also is, I think, a very strong indication of how passionately and how strongly Martin Scorsese really feels about this particular work. And it's so lovely and so warm to listen to his comments here in this introduction. Once again, this is the 2-minute or so introduction from Martin Scorsese. So please check it out if you can. Then the second of the 2 supplements that is included is one which is called On Trances, and this is also, this is also from 2013, and this is maybe a collection of interviews with various people that are associated with the film Trances. So this includes the director Ahmed El Maanouni, and also the producer Isa Giannini, and also one of the members of Nas El Diwan, Omar Syed, and also Martin Scorsese. And for example, Martin Scorsese mentions with details about, once again, the discovery of this particular film, and he mentions how he had discovered it on Night Flight, and he also mentions how Nas El Diwan had a really strong influence upon him, to the extent that he wanted to use Nas El Diwan music in one of his films, which is called Last Temptation of Christ. And other comments from Scorsese, which are very very respectful, and again, once again, shows his passion for this film and for the music. And also we have a lot of comments from Giannini and also Ahmed El Maanouni about the circumstances of the film, the production of the film, and also details about, again, from Ahmed El Maanouni, certain aspects of how important and sort of the phenomenal nature of Nas El Diwan at the time, and the way in which he was trying to present information about this. And also producer Isa Giannini focuses on certain aspects of the production and the context of making a film like this during this particular time, and also aspects of, say, the cinema of Morocco are touched upon in the essay, the great essay which is included with this release, and I'll get to that momentarily. But these and other comments, I think, are very important because they show, again, the full breadth and importance and significance of Nas El Diwan and what it was that the filmmakers were trying to capture in making this film. And also, speaking of Nas El Diwan, this documentary, or this particular supplement, also features comments, one-on-one comments from member Omar Syed as well. So very valuable and wonderful to hear from his point of view and his perspective. Also, this particular supplement on trances goes into, it has a narrator who at certain points of this particular supplement documentary focuses in or gives us some explanatory background as to Nas El Diwan. For example, the narrator describes to us about how the meaning of Nas El Diwan, or the Nas El Diwan, can be translated into disciples of the Diwan, and how this is an indication of the strong links that Nas El Diwan and the music have with respect to the literary cultural legacy of Morocco in terms of Sufi storytelling, and also in terms of the musical landscape that is being portrayed here. So the narrator mentions, for example, and it's actually mentioned on the back of the description of this particular Criterion release, the individual release. The narrator mentions Berber rhythms, and also Nawa music, and also Malhoun sung poetry. And these 3 points, as I say, are indicated on the back of the Criterion box here. This is very significant. Now, I have to be very clear here, which is I am in no way an expert when it comes to the culture and history of Morocco and the musical landscape of Morocco. I am in no way an expert. But that is also my way of trying to say that a documentary or supplement like this from Criterion really is very helpful in giving someone like myself at least a foundation from which I can therefore try to further explore and study this particular aspects. And so based on my own understanding, so Berber rhythms are associated with sort of the cultural and literary and musical traditions of North Africa, Maghreb, and references to Malhoun sung poetry and Malhoun music in general, I think, are references to the great legacy of poetry and sung poetry, which have its roots and foundations in the poetry, for example, of Abdurrahman El Maanouni, and also references to Nawa music and Malem. And this is very important too, especially with in the context of one of the members during this time, Trances, that the film Trances made. One of the members of Nas El Diwan is a Malam, or described as being Malam, Abderrahim Pak. And so these traditions, as well as references to Basat music, traditional music of Morocco, and also traditional literature and poetry of Morocco, is being expressed, not just or in many ways in terms of the identity of Nas El Diwan, the existence of Nas El Diwan, what it represents to people, and also in the context of the songs themselves, the specific songs, and also the way in which this group is presenting these songs that are, on the one hand, links to the traditional past and the music and literary legacy of Morocco, on the one hand, but also expressing them in these very interesting modern day settings. And there's a way in which, for example, the instruments that are used is, I think, a really interesting indication of this. According to, say, the narration of this particular supplement, we understand that the instrumentation that is relied upon by Nas El Diwan is all acoustic. It's not relying on any electric-based instrumentation, and for the most part, these instruments are traditional, almost traditional or folk music, traditional instruments. So, for example, there is the bendir, which is, I understand, this circular handheld drum or framed drum, and then the darbuka, which is this percussion instrument, which is shaped like a kind of cup or goblet shape. And then there's also the guembri, which is this type of stringed lute instrument. And also there is the banjo that is used as well. And the narration describes it as being a fretless banjo. And so this is, I think, an interesting indication of the way in which instruments are used from, say, traditional aspects of Moroccan musical landscape, and also from outside that particular musical landscape as well. So a very interesting mix. So this is, again, from my understanding, an indication of how Nas El Diwan is both it's past, present, and indeed future, all in one. And this is probably another reason why, or that speaks to just the reasons why Nas El Diwan is the phenom that it is. So it seems to be expressing all these things at once. And I must say too that this particular supplement, as I say, is one that is very helpful for someone like myself because it doesn't, as I say, I don't have the background or knowledge base to be able to fully maybe understand every aspect of what is being presented within this film. So so that's all on me. So that means I need to study more. And so having a supplement like this is a really great jumping off point for a lot of these topics to study. So it also talks, speaking of which, one of the things too, it goes briefly into some of the background details of Nas El Diwan and the founding members, and also some of the members that joined a little bit later. It also makes reference to Bujama Hagur, who does make an appearance in a very special and poignant way in this film. And we see Omar Syed in particular reacting on stage or speaking on stage about the passing of Hargur. And so this is this type of information is very important indeed, and it's a great providing of a type of foundational basis for which more, I think, exploration and study is possible. So it's a really wonderful supplement in that regard. So please check it out if you can. And with respect to the supplements, so those are the only two supplements that we see included with this particular release, and indeed in the earlier World Cinema Project box set release of the film. So, but I do want to emphasize very, very strongly that the content of those supplements is extraordinary. And as I say, it is incredibly helpful and provides insight into the traditions and literary and poetic legacies of the landscape of the culture of Morocco, and how this is so important to the identity and representation and artistic expression of Nas El Diwan. So in that way, it is, in many ways, or in that way, it is essential and wonderful, and please check it out if you can. But that is not all, because the release here by Criterion also has the insert, and I've taken the liberty of removing the insert now. It is a poster insert, so it's not a staple booklet and it's not a foldout, but it is a poster type. So on one side we have a type of continuation of the artwork motif that we saw on the front here, and so this is a very, I think, wonderful artistic expression. Incidentally, the credits here indicate art directors Eric Skillman, Sarah Habibi, and designer Tawfiq Dawi and Hay Porter. So I think it's a really lovely, fascinating artistic refrain that is, as I say, continued on into this poster insert. Now, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the fold-out or poster insert format, but that is nothing. I don't want to take anything away from the actual content of this presentation itself, which I think is really fantastic. I just wish there could have been a booklet, that's all. But that being said, on the back of this particular poster fold-out, there is the essay called Power to the People by Sally Shafto. This is another splendid, fantastic essay, and this is in fact the essay that we had included in the earlier box set, the World Cinema Project box set, in the booklet, and this booklet is right here, and we get the same essay, the Sally Shafto essay. This is essential. This is absolutely essential. I cannot stress enough just how helpful and informative and truly enlightening this essay was for me. Again, someone who does not have the background or knowledge base when it comes to Nas El Diwan or the culture and history of Morocco. Having an essay like this is another great source or jumping off points from which one can further continue one's study or exploration. So what do I mean by this? So for example, the essay by Sally Shafto makes reference to the state of the cinema of Morocco leading up to the emergence of this film, TRANCES, and the emergence of the filmmaker Ahmed El Maanouni. So that is, I think, very important to see what the state of the arts was leading up to, say, the early 1980s. And there's mention of, say, the Centre Cinématographique Marocain in Rabat. Let me say that again. Centre Cinématographique Marocain in Rabat, and also leading up to the nature or the importance of, say, the documentary film in the Moroccan cinema tradition. And so that means creating the context, if you will, for the film like TRANCES. So this is one of the key points of the essay. Another key point is focusing in on the true phenom and significance, that is Nas El Diwan, as well as the meaning of Nas El Diwan, the meaning of what this name is, and also focusing in on each of the members that we see in the documentary itself. So, and that includes also Boujama Ghur. Focusing in on the members and their specific, say, character. The essay goes into, speaking about the member Larbi Batma, talking about one of the very famous episodes of this film regarding Aisha Kandisha and this historical figure and the story behind this particular figure. And so the essay, I think, gives further background or detail about this, as well as giving, say, detail about, say, other members that we see and their maybe significance or how they figure in terms of the group dynamic. And we see, for example, Omar Syed is described as being maybe adopting the position of maybe leader of the group, and as it were, especially after the passing of Boujama Ghur, excuse me. Another very fascinating point of the essay is talking about or making brief references to the political landscape, and specifically references to King Hassan II during this particular time that this film is being made and that Nas El Diwan is making and creating its music. And the reign of Hassan II is described here as being from 1961 to 1999. And also this is tied both directly and indirectly to the history of Morocco, especially in this very important point of 1956 and the independence of Morocco. And then following that, a few years later, the rule of Hassan II. And this is actually a very interesting and nuanced detail that the essay brings up about the reign of Hassan II and how it was perhaps it could be seen by many historians and also many citizens, people who lived through the times, as being a very difficult time. And the reign of this particular ruler brought about with it certain difficulties of a very significant nature towards the people who were living here at the time. And in this context, the essay makes reference to quite a a complex relationship that Nas El Ghiwan had with this particular rule. And this is also because while there are aspects of the political rule that can be said to be very negative, there are also aspects, or the essay describes this particular rule and this particular ruler as also at the same time being very supportive of the arts and artists like Nas El Ghiwan. And so in that context, there is a very interesting, complex nature by which Nas El Ghiwan is figuring into the political landscape of Morocco during this time. And the essay provides a great insight into this. And so, again, for someone like myself, who is not a student, not an expert at all when it comes to the history of Morocco, information like this is incredibly helpful. So, for these and other reasons, I think the essay is absolutely essential. And this, along with the supplements that are found on the disc itself, I think form a really great basis, summarizing a lot of the key points. And from there, one can further study and further explore the background and the historical context and the literary context, the artistic context, as well as the musical context, and the essence and the spirit and soul that is surrounding Nas El Ghiwan and everything that it represents in the context of the history and soul and spirit of Morocco. So that is the Criterion individual release of this film, and I think it is a very strong one. Once again, if you have the earlier box set, then question whether or not this individual release is for you. Chances are it's very likely that you will stick with the earlier box set and maybe not get the individual release, and that's fine. As I say, you're getting pretty much the same thing or the same presentation, and it's great either way. But if you don't have this particular set, and maybe the set is because box sets can be somewhat pricey, and so if you want to opt for, say, an individual release from this set, you're gonna have such a great time with this particular individual release of this film, Trances. It is, as I say, phenomenal and so filled with energy and life and spirit and soul that I can't stress enough how strongly I recommend this. This is a great film. So in either form, my friends, in this box set or in this individual release, you will be getting a splendid, engaging, and brilliant work. This is the film from 1981, and it is called Trances. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.